Right now, we've got Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. She's a GOP conference chair and House Intel Committee member. She's joining us from her remote location. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
It's great to have you as well. Gary Kasparov just was talking about how Mr. Putin is going to emerge the victor because he got to have a photo op, essentially, with the President of the United States. But at the same time, you know how the American press works, and they so much hated Donald Trump and so much loved Joe Biden. They're going to say, look at this successful summit. He went to Geneva, he sat down with a world leader of a superpower, even though it's not a superpower, and he was so presidential.
Well, the media certainly has double standards when it comes to how they covered President Trump versus how they're covering President Biden. But what I'm really looking at is how Biden is going into this meeting. He is going into this meeting asserting weakness based upon the policy decisions and the giveaways that the American government has already given to Russia under Vladimir Putin. For example, the waiving of the sanctions of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. That's a giveaway for Russian energy independence at the same time that President Biden is crushing American energy independence with the decision to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline. Another really important issue, this is very technical, but the New START treaty, which of course governs the nuclear arsenal, nukes numbers. Russia's top priority was getting a clean extension of that, and President Biden gave it to them without any preconditions before going into this summit. And then the third key issue is the cyber attacks that, according to open source, backed by Russia. These are from cyber thugs, but backed by the Putin regime. We've seen an attack on our colonial pipeline, our energy sector, as well as our agricultural food supply.
I don't know if you have a monitor there, but I just want to describe to what we're seeing. For the first time, we're seeing the photo op or a spray of the Vladimir Putin sitting across from or next to President Biden. To President Biden's immediate right is the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and on to Vladimir Putin's is Blinken's contemporary and counterpart, that would be Sergei Lavrov. And they're just having some light talk.
It sounded like he was talking about, he hoped it was productive as well. But ultimately, Elise Stefanik, Congresswoman from New York State, who is joining us via remote, Joe Biden and the White House team just got exactly what they want. They want that image where that world leader is sitting to the other, next to the other world leader, and Joe Biden is doing America's business.
This photographer in front of our camera is trying to get that perfect shot.
Hey, you with the big head, sit down there. All right, he's going to sit right there. Congressman, ultimately, this is about optics, and that's the image the White House wanted.
Well, it's about optics, but it's also about policies. Again, Joe Biden is going into this with a weak hand with many of the policy announcements and the giveaways that the U.S., unfortunately, under this administration has already given to Vladimir Putin. I talked about the cyber attacks. President Biden is being tested. Early on in administrations, you are tested by your adversaries, and the cyber attacks backed by Russia on our energy supply and our food supply, that shows the U.S. is vulnerable, and that is President Biden being tested and, frankly, failing the test to secure our critical infrastructure. So it will be important that we hear from President Biden what are the American wins from these discussions, because we cannot continue to give away to Russian priorities. So I think, again, Vladimir Putin is an adversary. He respects strength. And I'll be honest with you, President Biden has not shown American strength in the course of the G7 meetings or in the course of the beginning of this presidency.
Congresswoman, we've got to go in there. We've got to be tough. You know, we're seeing what they're doing with the cyber ransom attacks here in America. It's not okay for us to have a pipeline, but it's okay for them to have a pipeline. And Rick Grinnell was saying earlier, who worked for President Trump, as you know, he was saying earlier he doesn't think that that Biden will be tough enough. What do we need to do to go in there and show them we are powerful?
I think, number one, I think how President Biden presents himself is going to be really important. He has struggled to present that strength that we used to see from President Trump, from President George W. Bush, when it came to national security and foreign policy issues. They need to make sure that we are tough on Russia when it comes to human rights, and that President Biden raises the issue of Navalny. We need to make sure that there's an understanding there will be consequences to any cyber attack that is conducted by Russian thugs against any U.S. interest, not just our government's interests, but critical infrastructure. And we also need to make sure that Russia understands that some of our key allies are countries like the Ukraine, and making sure that that is crystal clear to Vladimir Putin. Unfortunately, that's not what we've been hearing from this White House. And again, they've given multiple giveaways to Russia, whether it's for their energy sector, whether it's for their nuclear modernization program with the New START treaty, or again, failing those tests when it comes to the cyber attacks against the U.S.
Garry Kasparov still with us, political activist, legendary chess player, and he's with Democracy Initiative. Garry, you just saw, like we just saw, Vladimir Putin, this blasé, I've been down this road before attitude. That seems to be what his body language says. Evidently, they played the whole 45-minute NBC interview in Russia, and Vladimir Putin loves the way he's coming off. So far, is this hitting on all levels from the Putin perspective?
Absolutely. This interview was just a shame. Because if you have this chance talking to Russian dictator, you have to ask some tough questions. And it seems that everything has been agreed upon. It was a humiliation for an American network to present itself as a platform for a foreign dictator. And we all could see Putin now just, beaming with joy because he got what he wanted. That's all he needs. He's at the top diplomatic table. He's now been elevated even above other NATO countries. So Biden met with others and then with Putin. That brings us back to the Soviet era. But Soviet Union was very different. It was really superpower. Putin's Russia not. And Soviet Union tried to play by certain rules. Putin doesn't. And I have bad news. He will never cease attacking America and American interests because that's a part of his global campaign. He's at war. It's a hybrid war. And I'm afraid that this meeting in Geneva just, emboldens him because it tells him that if he pushes hard, so he will get what he wants.
But what if we do to his grid or to do to his food supply what he did to ours? What if we do to his pipeline what he did to ours? Would he understand that, what we're capable of? Because we certainly have the capabilities to do exactly what his cyber bandits did.
Yeah, but first, that's the easiest way, just to attack mafia and mafia boss is go after money, follow the money. Hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, that have been stolen from Russia is kept in the free world. Attack these assets. Make sure that the rest of the mafia understands that Putin, the big boss, no longer offers them this protection. So before going after Russian greed, which is, again, it's also an option, show that you're strong enough. Make sanctions bite. And it seems that now it's going in opposite direction because no matter what kind of sanctions are imposed, the meeting tells Putin's Russian cronies and his agents worldwide, his lobbyists, that Putin is still the big boss. And I think, that America needs, to lead the world, demonstrating its strengths and its strategic policy to dealing with Russian dictator, who is, by the way, it has his fingerprints in every tough spot in the world.
Congresswoman, President Trump, we all knew his message. It was America first. And he went into that meeting with Vladimir Putin 3 years ago in Helsinki. Do you feel that that is the same message today as we see Biden inside this building with Vladimir Putin?
No, it's certainly not the same message. And again, President Trump was very tough on Russia, despite the biased media's coverage regarding U.S.-Russian relations. I think President Trump was extremely tough on Russia, whether it was sanctioning the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, whether it was being tough on cyber actors when it came to Russia. And Vladimir Putin respects that strength. That's the only way Russia's going to respond. The other difference I'll point out is President Trump took hours and hours of questions from the press. And we have seen Joe Biden hide from the press while he's on the international stage. I know he's hidden from Fox News, who hasn't been able to get a question in. That is not showing American strength. And I'm hopeful that the media will ensure that Joe Biden answers a number of questions after this very important summit today. But this is a stark contrast with President Trump's leadership, especially if you look at the policy differences between how we were tough on Russia under a Republican president versus going into this meeting with weak policy decisions that have weakened the U.S. hand.
Gary Kasparov, thanks so much for joining us. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, thanks both of you for your great analysis as we wait for the summit to officially begin behind closed doors.